Hello everyone, this is Andrew from Crown Academy of English. Today's lesson is about the expression would rather. So would rather. Well, we use would rather to describe a preference of one thing compared to another thing. So there are two things and we prefer one of them. Example: he would rather watch TV than read a book. He would rather watch TV than read a book. So this means that there are two things, watching TV and reading a book, and he prefers this one. So he prefers the first one. He prefers to watch TV. Second example: she would rather be a nurse than be a teacher. She would rather be a nurse than be a teacher. Okay, so here there are two things, two jobs, and she prefers this one. She would rather be a nurse. Now let's look at the form in more detail. So let's look at the full form of the affirmative or positive. So here is another example. I would rather walk than run. I would rather walk than run. So the form is the subject, would rather, then the base form of the verb, walk. And then when we compare it to something else, we use the word than, and then the second verb is also in the base form. So I would rather walk than run. This is the base form of walk, and this is the base form of run. Okay? So let's look at the form of each one. I would rather walk than run. You would rather walk than run. He would rather walk than run. She would rather walk than run. It would rather. We would rather. You would rather. And they would rather. So as you can see, the only thing that changes is the subject. That's the only thing that changes. All the other words stay the same. Would rather is the same for each subject. Okay, and we always use the base form. That never changes. Okay, so this means I would prefer to walk. So if I have a choice of walking or running, I prefer to walk. So I would rather walk. Let's look at the contracted form. So here is the full form. I would rather walk than run. And in the contracted form, we write an apostrophe, which is this little line here, and the apostrophe replaces these letters. We put apostrophe D instead of would, and then we say rather. Okay, so the form, when we use the contracted form, is the subject followed by apostrophe D, rather, then the base form, then the word than, and then the base form. So this is the part that changes. And we use the contracted form mainly in spoken English or informal English. It's very, very common, very, very common. So we pronounce it I'd rather walk than run. So it's the same syllable. Okay, so this is the full form. We have already seen this. I have already shown you this. And here is the contracted form. So I'd rather, you'd rather, he'd rather, she'd rather, it'd rather, we'd rather, you'd rather, they'd rather. Okay? So this is the contracted form. The meaning is the same. The meaning of the contracted form and the full form is exactly the same.